Yes, I'm Batman.
I'm Batman. I'm Batman, Alfred.
I'm Batman.
I am Batman.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
Greetings, Bat Family. Welcome back to Holy BatCast, brought to you by Real Fans for Real Movies. Please visit our website, holybatcast.com. Please follow us all over social media on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast and you will find us. And if you love the show, we are also on Patreon, so you can go to patreon.com/holybatcast if you would like to help us keep the show moving. That would mean a lot to us. And so I got to give a big thank you to our latest patron, Mr. Justin, who has a very complicated last name, Piotrowicz. Yeah, I think he's part of the Maximoff family or something with that name. So I'm sorry, Justin, but it's a very cool last name, and I wish I could say it right. Piotrowicz. Anyway, Justin, thank you for your contribution. You're awesome. We really do appreciate it. And honestly, anybody who does support us through Patreon, it does mean the world to us. So we'll be hearing more from Justin because he was nice enough to help us out. So again, patreon.com/holybatcast. We are part of the Real Fans Podcast Network, so if you are looking for other shows to sample, you can do that at rf4rm.com. That includes the latest show that I am using to keep in touch with friends at home, and that is Why Not Futurama, where me and my buddy Scotty are going through Futurama episode by episode, so please check that out as well. As always, I am your host, Andy DiGenova. Hi. And if you want to follow me, you can do that on Instagram or on Twitter. It's just my name, Andy DiGenova. Deep breath. This episode, what are we going to talk about? We are going to talk about, finally, the new animated DC film, Batman Hush. We are going to review the next episode of Batman Beyond, and then we're going to answer your emails, because that's what we always do, because we love hearing from you. And joining me, I have not one, but two fantastic Bat partners in crime. First of all, he got up so early in the morning, and I give him nothing but credit because I don't think I could do it, but I'm glad he's here. It is, if we're doing Hush, he is going to be our very own Bane. It's Jamie Drewley. Hey, Jamie.
Yeah, I've got like a giant cup of coffee, a can of Dr. Pepper, and a 32-ounce glass of iced tea here. So,
well, we appreciate you making the sacrifice.
And on top of everything else, my dog's being a pain in the butt this morning, so she's down here in the basement with me, and I'm technically dog sitting while we're doing this. So this is going to be an interesting episode for this.
Oh, so we have our very own Ace the Bat Hound guesting.
Something like that, yeah.
But she's Cruz.
Yes.
Right, she's Cruz. Anyway, also joining us, our very own Scarecrow, because he's kind of gangly. It's Brendan.
Oh, thanks. How are we, gentlemen?
Good, how are you?
I'm okay.
Good, well, okay is better than bad?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm 4 days into 3.5 weeks by myself, so...
Oh, are you missing the little lady?
Oh, yeah, I'm missing Jess. Like, it's okay for the time being, but I know in 3 weeks' time I'm going to be super friggin' lonely.
Look at the bright side. Go to the bathroom with the door open. Fart as loud as you want.
You're assuming that I don't do those things anyway.
That's true, I am.
I do, but I've been married for 19 years, so...
Well, I've hit 7.5, so...
Well, congratulations to both of you. So, anyway, good to have you. So, if you're Bane and Scarecrow, I will be Nightwing, just because he's the best. Yeah, just cause.
Nothing to do with the fact that you're assigning these names that you get to be your favorite character.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it works.
Fair enough.
When you host your show, you can cast people how you like. Well, okay, then I'll be Tommy Elliott. How about that?
Okay.
Because it's Hush?
Yeah.
Anyway, we finally got around to doing Hush. It's time. This was a weird one because it was like it came out digitally, and then it came out on disc, and then it finally came out on DC Universe. It was like even more staggered than usual, so I feel like we've been waiting a while. But now it's finally available everywhere, where all three of us have now seen it.
You say everywhere, but it doesn't come out in Australia until Wednesday. But anyway.
Well, but thank goodness you have ways.
Well, it did hit digital, like on iTunes and stuff, the same time as overseas. But physical, yeah, not out till this week.
All right. Well, you're ahead of the curve. So, yeah, we have the next big DC animated film, and that is the classic and beloved tale, Batman Hush. All right, so Batman Hush is now available everywhere except Australia. Of course, it is based on the classic. Was it a graphic novel first, or was it like a series of issues that then got compiled later? Because I've only read it in like one fell swoop.
Wasn't it like the main Batman run for 12 months, or wasn't that the whole hook of it?
I think
maybe,
if I remember correctly, I may be off on my numbers here. I want to say Batman 608 was either where it kicked off or it was at least part of it, because I remember that cover of Superman holding Batman's throat that Jim Lee drew. There's like a retailer variant of that that's like one of the most expensive comic books that's been made in the last 20 years. Like trying to buy that thing on eBay, you're in 4-digit territory.
Jesus.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Because, yeah, Hush wrapped up like not long before I got back into comics. Like the two, like when there was the two single trades, they hadn't long been released when I got back into comics.
Oh, okay. Cool. So, yeah, I mean, because I came to it after the fact, so I only ever read it compiled, but that makes a lot of sense. So, save your emails. It was the landmark story by Jeph Loeb and Jim Lee, and so the animated version, I feel like, has been a long time coming, and we all knew that it was going to be a daunting task. So this one was directed by Justin Copeland, and has some classic voices. So Jason O'Mara is back as Batman. He's done all the in-continuity movies, the DC animated movies that were in continuity. He's been Batman for all of those. Sean Marr is back as Nightwing. He's also done the in-continuity ones as Nightwing. Jerry O'Connell's back as Superman. Rebecca Romijn is back as Lois Lane. Jennifer Morrison, most famous for Once Upon a Time, she joins the family as Catwoman, Selena Kyle.
Does a great job too.
Well, there you go. So anyway, it is out there. We have watched it, and we are going to start spoiler-free to respect you, because even if you haven't seen it yet, you've probably already caught wind that, yeah, they've made some changes. So we will stay spoiler-free to start, and then we will give you fair warning when we're getting into spoilers in case you haven't seen it and don't want anything spoiled for you. So spoiler-free, Jamie, what do you think of Hush?
Just to recap, because these amazing little device boxes will give you information if you ask them for it. Batman Hush was published in monthly installments within the comic book series Batman, running from issue 608 to 619, December 2002 to November 2003.
Awesome.
So
thank you.
There's the solution to that. Spoiler-free reactions. I enjoyed it. I recognize, I'm not as familiar with Hush as a story as, say, like a Dark Knight Returns or a Year One, or these things that I've, perennially read for decades now. I think I've read Hush 3 times in total, and the last time I read it was when we reviewed it for the show. When was that? 2 years ago, maybe?
A few years ago, yeah.
So, it's not that I don't think it's a great story. I really do like the story. It's just for some reason, with all the reading that I do, I don't get back around to it as often as I probably should. So my familiarity with the story is not like ingrained into my psyche. Every time I read it, it's like the first time I read it, because I tend to forget a lot of it. I remember like panels. Like that's what sticks out to me is a lot of the art panels for it. Or the showdown with Superman, for some reason, sticks out in my head. I think because there's so much arguing on who would win the Batman-Superman fight, and I always have to invoke the ones where Batman wins. So, those are the things that stick with me with the story. So I don't have it ingrained into me enough where when somebody makes changes for a story like this, that it hurts my feelings, makes me angry, that sort of a thing. So most of the changes that I noticed in this, they really didn't bother me. I mean, there's a little bit here and there that we'll touch on when we cross the spoiler wall that maybe I would have probably done differently or wish they did differently. But overall, I think it was a good watch. I'll probably watch it, not maybe a regular rotation sort of a thing, but I mean, it's mostly painless for me. So, I mean, I enjoyed it. There's a couple things with the animation that I really liked how it was done. Again, can't really talk about it until we get over the spoiler territory. And you know what? I'm just going to throw this out there now. Whoever wrote this should be in charge of writing the Batman-Catwoman relationship, because they certainly did it better than I think Tom King's done it for the last 3 years.
All right. I think that makes sense. Brendan, what about you?
I think I gave a bit of a spoiler-free review back when I first watched it around Comic-Con time on this show. But just to sort of reiterate, I really liked it as well. It's kind of what I expected it to be. If I was in charge of it, I would have made it, not in the continuity. I would have made it one of those one-off movies to maybe be a little bit more faithful to a few things and, change the art style and everything, because I think we've said on this show again several times, like, I'm kind of over the continuity side of the DC animated movies. Like, I think aesthetically it's time to change. But no, it's a really solid Batman movie. It's one that if I just want to watch just a cool solo Batman film, it's one I'll reach for now, along with the likes of Under the Red Hood. And yeah, I like the way they did things. I don't really have any major gripes, and I was fine with the changes that were made. So yeah,
I like watching you guys both carefully maneuver around any information. Just kind of talking around without giving anything away. I really liked it. I thought it was really good. I mostly loved it, but some of the changes I think work, and some of them I don't think work. And that will have to wait until spoilers. But I have no issue with them changing it. But if you're going to change it, you'd better make it work. And I feel like that it falls a little short as far as that goes. So I think the animation is terrific. It's beautiful. I think it's one of the best animated one of these movies. It just looks amazing. And I think most of the characters all look great, with a couple exceptions. But for the most part, I think everybody looks, if not their best, almost their best. And so I understand them not trying to replicate Jim Lee in animation. That's hard. I don't know if you could do that. So
there was an entire animated series back in the 90s that tried to do that, and it didn't work out so well. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's true. So I know that they, the director even said that. He goes, you can't do Jim Lee, so we do what we can do. And so I think that it made sense, like, okay, it's going to be in continuity. I'm with you, Brendan. I think I probably would have preferred they would have just made it its own thing, so that way they could just have done what they wanted. They wouldn't have been tied to the continuity. But I think for one of the in-continuity movies, again, everyone looks great, and the animation is really stunning, and the action animation is really impressive as well. I think that the storytelling is really strong throughout, for the most part, because I know that this is one kind of like the Long Halloween, but not as drastic as the Long Halloween, where people said, like, man, Hush is a huge story. There is a lot. How do you get that into a movie that's going to run an hour and 20 minutes? And I think that they did that mostly successfully. Like, they were able to get in so much of the book in a pretty short running time. So I was really impressed with that. As you said, Brendan, I really thought Jennifer Morrison did a great job as Catwoman. And as you said, as you said, Jamie, I also will agree that, this movie, really the emotional through line is the relationship between Bruce and Selina. And I think it's written really well, and I think it works really well. I think that's one of the really strong points of the movie. As Jamie said, I'm the same way. I have not read the source material since we reviewed it on this show. And I did consider rereading it either before or after seeing the movie, and I just didn't get around to it because I was curious, because there are obviously certain changes that did jump out to me, but there were ones where other people mentioned it and I went, oh, is that a change? I don't remember. So I don't know it backwards and forwards, but I think that I've always said that Hush as a comic is a good story with great artwork. And I feel like this movie maintains what is great about Hush, which is it is an all-star parade of the very best of Batman's world, with a little bit of Superman's world thrown in for good measure. And there's a story that then links it all together, but I think it's just so fun to see this parade of Batman characters, Batman locations, Batman villains, and it's like the sampler platter for everything that is Batman in one story, and the movie is very much the same way, and I love it for that. Like, that I always thought was the strongest part of Hush, and I think that that's the strongest part of this movie, is you get a little bit of everything, and that's super fun. It's a buffet of Batman, if you will. So I really liked it. I fall a little short of love for reasons that I will get into later, but I think it's a really strong effort. And if you like Hush, or if you just like Batman, it's a really good Batman animated movie.
Agreed.
Anything else non-spoilery before we jump the wall, or?
Not with this one, and I think we're going to be really careful.
Okay. Great. Well, then in that case, we all liked it. We all think it's a good movie, so I do think you should check it out, especially, again, if you're a Batman fan and you love the animation, you love these characters. I think that you're gonna enjoy this movie. As I mentioned, I don't think this is spoilery. You know, you get so much of Batman's world, and as I said earlier, so many of them look amazing. Like, Bane looks great. Poison Ivy looks great. The Scarecrow looks great. Like, they all look really good.
And the thing that's good about those characters too is that in terms of the continuity movies, which really they've been going on for over 5 years now, this is our introduction to a lot of these characters as well from Batman's world.
Yeah, because you're right. All the in-continuity movies, none of them have been not entirely Batman focused. Right.
Like, it's the introduction to essentially Batman's rogues gallery in terms of the continuity movies. Yeah,
that's true. It's a great point. And again, for me, most of them are really, really good. It is interesting though that the Joker, yeah, you're right, we meet him in this. That shouldn't be a spoiler if you're familiar with Hush at all. But the voice of the Joker is Jason Spisak? And I've never heard of him. So it was interesting that they went for a new Joker voice in this one. I think he did a good job, though. I liked him. It works, yeah. But yeah, I was like, oh, that's not Hamill, and that's not Troy Baker. Who is that? And it's this guy, Jason Spisak. I don't know how you say it. But no, I think he did a good job. Oh, he's apparently done Young Justice. He's Wally West and Kid Flash on Young Justice. Huh. He did the Batman Telltale games. Okay, he's Forager for Jamie.
Oh, there you go.
Fred Bug with 2 G's.
Yeah, he does DC Superhero Girls. So yeah, he's
got pedigree.
A talented voice guy. Yeah. So no, I liked his Joker. I thought he was really good. It was just unexpected that he didn't sound like another Joker. So good for him. Anyway, we liked it. It's a good flick. Check it out. We are going to jump over the spoiler wall, so be warned. I will say this also is that as the movie started and I was watching it, and I was at least halfway through the movie where I was like, they didn't change that much. Like, this still feels pretty authentic to what the book is. And then, then like things take a turn. I was like, oh, okay, they definitely made some changes. It's just the drastic changes come later. They don't when it starts off it's pretty faithful. So yeah, just FYI, I guess. So anyway, if you're afraid of spoilers, this is your chance. But now we are going to speak freely. So we are over the wall.
Best shot in the whole thing. I'm not going to do my usual thing and jump to the end. Best shot in the whole thing. I think it was the moment where he was on the ground injured and Catwoman was like fending off thugs, and they did like a 360-degree panoramic shot of her fighting those thugs. That was incredible. I could have watched just 2 hours of that.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly what I was talking about how great the animation is in this movie, is like stuff like that. You're like, wow, that was amazing.
And credit to the writers, producers, animators, and everything else in this. This is the most. I mean, I've said it before, and it always seems to get me some backlash, and understandably so. I get it. I understand. I'm not the biggest Catwoman fan. I really am not, and I'm definitely not the biggest fan of she and Batman's relationship. This is the most I've liked Catwoman probably since Dark Knight Rises. Mm-hmm. And probably top at least 2 or 3 for Batman-Catwoman relationship. I really appreciated almost every aspect that was put up on this for that. I mean, I just really think it was well done.
And I do feel like, again, my memory's a little fuzzy, but I do feel like the Bruce and Selina relationship and trying to make it work and partnering up, that is right from the book, right? Like that, I feel like it was.
Mostly,
from
I
my
think,
memory, yeah.
to my recollection.
Yeah. Like I feel like that was a direct lift, and they really made that the crux of this entire film. So no, I agree. I think that it's great, and I love their relationship. It's funny though, because I am so used to Selina knowing who Bruce and Batman are.
Yep.
That it threw me off in this one where she didn't know, and I was like, oh crap, like, okay, I guess she doesn't know in this world. Like, but for a minute I was confused by the back and forth between Bruce and Batman and Selina and Catwoman, because I was like, wait, don't you know? But I forgot. So
yeah. I'm going to sound like a red-blooded male for a second too, so forgive me, but Jennifer Morrison's voice work of Catwoman like sounds sexy as hell. Mm-hmm. She does a really good job. I mean, don't get me wrong.
I'll take that a step further and say the way they animated Catwoman in this was what's a tactful word to use for it?
Alluring.
Yeah, there we go. We'll go with that. Yes.
I think the marriage of the drawing and the voice, I agree. She, Catwoman, looked and sound amazing.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Jennifer Morrison, I've loved her for years in-house, so, I mean, she's a good-looking woman, but yeah, like, just her voice in this was perfect.
Yeah, and apparently she was, like, so excited to do this. Like, they came to her and they're like, hey, we're thinking about, Catwoman. And she's like, I'll do it. And they're like, well, don't you want to know more? And she's like, nope, I'll do it. And I was like, wow, that's great. Like, I love that. I love that enthusiasm. And I agree that she does a great job in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I forgot that she didn't know that Bruce was Batman, which then becomes a big part of the story. I guess one of the big changes, and this was one that I didn't know until someone said it, was that in this one, the very first big bad who shows up is Bane, and in the book it was Killer Croc. But I was like, I completely forgot that it was supposed to be Killer Croc. So when it was Bane, I didn't even bat an eye. I was just like, oh yeah, cool, Bane. And again, I thought he looked amazing. He looks as good as he ever has. Yeah,
I was aware of that one, but it never bothered me because I've never been a huge Croc fan anyway. Yeah,
and for me, fine. I kind of feel the same way about Bane and Killer Croc. So for me, I'm like, sure, 6 of one, half dozen the other.
Yeah, I get
it's
that.
Fine. Yeah, I have no strong feelings about it, and it works for the movie.
I mean, full disclosure, I haven't read the comic in maybe 3 or 4 years. So same as you, like my recollection of things, it wasn't up to snuff as to how it has been in the past, but. Yeah, I mean, that was one of the changes I noticed. I obviously expected going in that they probably weren't going to use the Jason Todd angle, because in this universe, how could they? Because they haven't ever introduced it, so that'd be a little bit weird. But obviously the big change at the end was the one that made me go, oh, okay, this is what you're doing. Okay, fair enough, I get it. And
right.
I think I've said it. I know I've definitely said it online, but I can't remember if I said it on this show or not. But once I realized what that change was, once it was revealed, I mean, can we say it now? Are we gonna?
I mean, I was trying not to jump to the end, but if we want to jump to the end, we can.
I have thoughts. It wasn't me that did this.
That's all right. I don't have to say it, but I'm just my thing was it reminded me very much of Gotham by Gaslight in that it was faithful to the comic. It was very much set in the world of the comic, but it made it interesting for people who know the comic so well. It also kept people like us guessing to a degree, because I don't know about you guys, but and I've said this before on the show, like I love Batman Year One. Like it is the comic that got me back into comics. I adore that book. And when they announced they were doing the animated movie, I was so excited. Like so friggin' excited. And when I sat down and watched it, I'll be honest, I was kind of bored. And it's not one that I grab off the shelf that often, because it was literally the comic panel for panel. And I think some people, and I mean, I get it. Like if that's your thing, fair enough. Some people want that in these adaptations, but it's a story influenced by the comic. Because I don't know, I just feel that when I go into these movies knowing exactly word for word what I'm going to get, in theory, it's better than what the movie actually is. Because again, Year One's one of my favorite comics. I reread it at least once a year. I haven't watched the movie since maybe 2016. Whereas something like this, I'll grab it more than I will Year One, because it's different. Like I'm getting something different every time I watch it. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
And yeah, something else the director said, like they had him on DC Movie News, which is one of the DC podcasts I do listen to, and he was on there and they said, hey, were you worried about changing the ending of Hush? And he was like, no. And they were like, it's a pretty big change. He goes, yeah, but if you're not going to change it, why make the movie to begin with? And I was like, I respect that. I think that there's something to be said for it. There was already a version in print, and if you're not going to put your spin on it, then why even bother? And so,
yeah, I mean, effectively, you got to understand: are you using that for some kind of a motivational basis, or are you making a motion comic? And I think too many people expected and or really wanted a motion comic version of this, and I can't fault them for that. I can't. But at the same time, it was intriguing seeing a little bit more surprise going into it. Like I feel bad enough for the hardcore fans that love Hush the way I love, say, A Dark Knight Returns or something like that they didn't get their... I've always been very content with Dark Knight Returns, the animated movie. I think that they... Obviously, you have to make some changes when you change media formats for a story like that. But I always felt like Dark Knight Returns was about as true as I could have ever hoped it would be to the original source material. And this one, I can't really say that about. So for the Hush diehards, I feel bad for them that really wanted it to be that way. But at the same time, for me, it was interesting enough watching what they did here and being taken for a different ride down a different path with it, that it didn't really bother me. At least not in the sense that I'm like, oh, I'm mad at this because it changed something. Now, maybe I would have, again, things maybe I would have done differently or wish that they would have done differently here. Sure, that's present. We're going to get in that discussion. But I mean, I'm not mad at the idea that they tried something different. You know what I'm saying?
Right. No, exactly. I have no problem with the idea of changing it. And also, I feel like... and I don't want to put words in anyone else's mouth, but I feel like the reputation of Hush is very similar to what I said at the beginning, is people think the story is good, but the artwork is amazing. And I don't feel like the story of Hush is as beloved as something like The Dark Knight Returns. And so I think that, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe there are people out there who think it's one of the best written stories in Batman history, but I've never talked to those people. And so I feel like it gives you a little more latitude to play with it and change it, because it's a good story to begin with, but it's like it still has opportunities to improve. Whereas I feel like the same way about Gotham by Gaslight. I really like Gotham by Gaslight, and it's a hell of an awesome premise, but there were still opportunities to improve the story. And I think this is the same way, and I respect that they acknowledge that, and then they try their hand at it. Do I think they were entirely successful? I don't. Which we'll get into. But I have no problem with putting your own spin on it because you might as well. But I do think that something like Dark Knight Returns, they couldn't change it as much because of what a landmark comic it is, whereas Hush, as beloved as it is, I don't think anybody calls it like one of the very best stories ever written. I think people just go, no, it's just a really fun Batman story. You know what I mean? So I just think that maybe people we're learning maybe that's not the case, is that some people weren't as open to the change because a lot of people don't seem to like this movie. But I have no problem with, I have no problem with the concept of changing it, but if you're going to change it, it better work. And I guess this is as good a time as any. But Brendan, was there something you wanted to say before we go into it?
Well, I was just going to say, if you're going to drop who Hush actually is, I think it was maybe last week or the week before, you and I were saying off mic before we recorded, when you look at the comic, they play it as a mystery as to who Hush is, but it's really not. It's any of these stories, and it's not just in Batman comics, but these sort of things, when you introduce a new character who's from this person's past and we've never heard of them before, chances are they're probably going to be involved. It's not a stretch to think that, Tommy Elliott on some level was involved with the Hush character.
Right. No, and I do think that was always the weakness of the original story, is that this guy, Tommy Elliott, shows up out of nowhere. You've never heard of him before, but they want you to know he's important. And then, sorry, spoilers for the Hush book, at the end you find out he was Hush, and it's like, well, yeah, no shit. Who else was it going to be?
Yeah, exactly.
There were no other suspects. So I felt like the mystery portion of the Hush story was always dead on arrival because there was no one else for it to be.
Same thing with the Gotham by Gaslight book, too. I mean, we discussed that as well. I mean, that's the problem in writing a mystery, is if you don't have a firm set to make more than one or even two suspects for it, it's not always going to pan out the best in the end for the story.
And that's why I never had a problem with the Gotham by Gaslight movie, and why from the get-go, after I finished watching this for the first time a month ago, I was just like, oh, well, they did a Gotham by Gaslight. That was my first basis for comparison.
Totally. Yeah, so I completely understand that, and what's funny is I don't think I knew going into watching it that it was not going to be Tommy Elliott. I didn't know that. I knew that they had changed some things, but I didn't know what. And I didn't know that they changed Hush's identity. So when the movie starts and you meet Tommy Elliott at the party with Bruce and Selena, and I'm like, oh, okay, great, here's Tommy. And then, and they do a good job of incorporating him into the story because Bruce gets really banged up. He almost dies, and Tommy has to come in and help him out.
Just
and I think they
really quickly.
Although I will say I love the moment where they're like, oh, crap, we need to get him to a hospital. And Batgirl is like, how do we do that? And they're like, well, Bruce Wayne can go to the hospital. We're going to crash his car. We're going to get him to the hospital. And Batgirl's like, it is really disturbing that you guys have a plan for this.
That was a great moment.
It's terrific. I love the use of Batgirl in this. I love the use of Nightwing in this. And I will also say I love that Damian only gets one scene, and that's it.
Yeah, and that scene was actually pretty funny.
Oh, that was another highlight of the film for me, was Damian. And even though it was a brief involvement, it was Damian to the core as far as his character, which, love him or hate him. I mean, that was really well done, in my opinion.
And I think a trollop.
Yes.
I think that was Damian at his best. I want you to use protection, and for God's sake, cover your glass, or whatever it was he said. I was laughing so hard at that.
Yeah, when he called her a trollop, it's a great scene. Like, you've got to work on your slang.
Right. So it was the right use of Damian, and there wasn't too much of Damian. I'm still a little bitter that because of Damian, Tim Drake doesn't exist.
Yep.
Drives me nuts. I'm not saying we don't need Damian. I'm just saying the fact that Damian exists means that we just constantly ignore Tim Drake, which just drives me nuts.
And for you Drake diehards, I like Tim Drake too. I'm not saying I don't, but for you Drake diehards, that's terrible. It really is. So I can understand a little bit of the bitterness that Damian catches from you guys for that reason. Me, I love Damian. So
I get Damian makes for more interesting stories because He's imperfect, he's cocky, he creates drama, he creates tension. He is a better instrument for telling stories. Because Tim is just an all-around good guy, generous, wants to help out, wants to do the right thing. He's a hero. And that's great for aspiration, but it's not great for mixing things up and causing problems. Damien is great to cause problems, and that's what you need if you're going to tell stories. So I get it. But, like, can we just not pretend Tim doesn't exist, please? Anyway, my point was they incorporated Tommy Elliott throughout, and I really was like, oh, okay, so sure, they're changing some things. And again, through the first half, I was like, no, I mean, yeah, it's not exactly the same, but it's still close enough. It's Hush. It feels right. And the fact that they did the whole Metropolis interlude, like, that could easily have been removed, but it's also an iconic part of the story, so I understand why they were like, well, we still got to get it in there, and I was impressed with all that. And then when Tommy Elliott, and we are talking spoilers, but then when Tommy Elliott is killed outside of the opera, I just was like, oh, okay, like, he's faking it. And then they have the funeral, and I was still like, okay, he's faking it.
Yeah, and
I thought Clayface would come in.
I was watching that the entire time, thinking to myself, obviously a Lazarus Pit is playing a part in this, so this is the ultimate fake out that he pulled this.
Yeah, so I really, the whole time, I kept waiting for it to be Tommy Elliott, and then when it turned out to not be him, I was like, okay, well, then you really did change it up. And back to the point that Brendan and I were making, or all three of us were making, about that the fact that he's the only real suspect, and then you discover that that's not the case. I'm like, well, I do give them credit for turning it on its ear and making us really think that it's going to be him. Mm-hmm. And it turns out it's not. And so I respect that. I think the solution they came up with doesn't work.
Okay.
I don't like it. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And it goes back to, like, they wanted to change the story. But to quote Ian Malcolm, they were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they never stopped to think if they should. And I think it gets close to working, almost, but it falls short. And that's my biggest issue with the movie, is it's not that they made a change. It's that the change they made doesn't hold up under scrutiny.
No, not.
And for a number of reasons. Someone already called this out to me on Twitter. Of course they did. So put it out there. We find out Hush is the Riddler.
What?
The Riddler had a brain tumor, and Tommy Elliott was helping him with that, and he basically was like, "Hey, you're dead. Sorry, like you can't be cured." And so the Riddler manages to get to the Lazarus Pit, and the Lazarus Pit makes him strong and makes him even smarter than he already was, and he creates Hush, and orchestrates this entire chain of events of everything that's kind of happening around Batman. But there are a lot of problems with it. The biggest problem, and this was my point. Someone called this out to me, and they're like, "Oh, I want to know how Andy feels when Nightwing calls the Riddler a C-lister."
I was thinking that because they play on that several times in the movie, like essentially that the Riddler's just a joke.
So this is my issue. They are trying to rewrite history of who the Riddler is to try and make their twist work. The problem is that's not who the Riddler is. Just because you say it out loud, oh, he's a C-lister, he's a joke, doesn't make it true. Mm-hmm. He's not. He is neither of those things. And at the end, they basically say, oh, his whole motive was that he was tired of being a joke, and he was insecure and a C-lister. The Riddler is not insecure. He is the exact opposite of insecure. The Riddler is ego. The Riddler knows he is the smartest guy in the room every time. Mm-hmm. There's no insecurity about the Riddler. And just because you think he's a C-lister, whoever wrote this, like maybe to the writer, Ernie Altbacher, he doesn't like the Riddler. And so he's calling the Riddler a C-lister. That doesn't make it true. Mm. So you could argue he's not an A-lister. I might give you that and say, okay, sure, he's at the B+ list. Sure, I can give you that.
Well, I mean, it depends on how you're going to qualify what makes somebody an A-lister, B-lister, or something like that. But, I mean, for me, it would be iconography and recognizability. Like, I could show my father a picture of the Riddler right now, and he could tell me who the Riddler is. If I showed him a picture of Scarecrow or Ra's al Ghul or Killer Croc or Clayface or any of those, my father's not going to be able to tell me. And I imagine it would be like that with most people that you bump into out on the street. So by that definition, I really think Riddler is an A-lister because he is known mostly to the general population, probably because of, say, like a Batman 66 or something like that. But the fact is people know who the friggin' Riddler is. Or even an entire generation of people, and I don't even want to get in this discussion today, guys, but I'm going to throw it out there as another example. An entire generation of people know who the Riddler is because of Batman Returns. Or not Returns, I'm sorry, Forever. Batman Forever. I always confuse those two. So, I mean, people recognize him. So, again, how do you qualify A-list? Is it the biggest threat to Batman? Is it the recognizability? To me, it's the recognizability of a character.
Sure. And if you were to go up to anyone.
Yeah, you were about to say the same thing. Yeah, like, name 4 Batman villains, you're going to get Joker, Penguin, Riddler, Catwoman.
Probably so.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so there are different ways to define A-list, but no matter how you define it, the Riddler is at least B-list, if not A-list. And I'm not trying to get into semantics, but the point is this, is that the Riddler has been always, well, not always, because there were like time in the 40s or 50s where he wasn't anything. It was the 60s that brought him to prominence. But the point is at this point in 2019, the Riddler is one of Batman's most formidable foes. Not from a brawn perspective, but entirely from a brains perspective. He's the only one as smart as Batman. That's why the Riddler is the Riddler. And so for this movie to go, well, we want to make him hush, but the only way to make him hush is if people don't take him seriously. Because that is going to have to motivate him to take on a new persona, so people will take him seriously. So we have to downplay who he is, but it just comes off as forced.
Go
ahead.
I see what you're saying with all of this. For me, the one tweak I would have made there is make it less about, people think I'm a joke and I'm a C-lister and all this other stuff, and I wanted to elevate above that. I wouldn't have taken that approach. For me, the approach I would have taken is I've been forgotten about for years. I've taken a back seat for years. I used to be the one of the premier villains in Gotham, and somehow I've taken a back seat to the likes of guys like Bane or some of these other ones that showed up in this movie. That to me would have been brilliant because that's true. That's accurate. Riddler has unfortunately taken a back seat to a lot of the newer villains, and unfairly so, I would venture to guess. So in that respect, in that approach, I think that works better versus saying, I've always sucked, but now I'm cool.
Right. See, there were better ways to write it to make it work, and the solution they came up with was to try and redefine who the villain is so their twist could work. And I'm not saying this just as a Riddler fan. If it had been Penguin and they used the same exact thing, I would still say, yeah, but come on, the Penguin is one of the big boys. I'm not the biggest Penguin fan, but don't pretend the Penguin doesn't matter. And for you to buy this, they're trying to tell me the Riddler doesn't matter. And that's not true.
A question I have, and like I said before, it's been a few years since I've read the comic, so hopefully you guys can remember, and I'm sure we'll get tweets if we get it wrong, but at the end of the Hush comic, after everything's all said and done and it's revealed to be Tommy and everything, isn't there another twist where it turns out the Riddler was the brains behind it all?
Yes. And that's so much better. Yes.
Yeah, and see,
that's just it.
That
his use in the original book was so much better. Because he was aware of everything that was going on, and he was all doing it from jail, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and see, that's the part where when the twist was revealed, that it again made me kind of be more okay with it than some other people. I was like, oh, okay, so they've kind of cut out the middleman as Tommy Elliott, and they've just made him hush. Because he was behind it all anyway. So that sort of didn't bother me. Like I said, and to be perfectly honest, I hadn't thought of it the way that you just described it, Andy. And you're right. I can't argue with you. I just hadn't thought that hard about it. But yeah, that's what made me even more okay with it. Even probably more than spoilers, with who the killer turned out to be in Gotham by Gaslight. is because that one came from nowhere. Like, I won't say who it is, but like, you know, that one came from nowhere. Whereas this one, I was like, okay, like, I get what you're doing, because in the comic, it's him all along anyway. So that made it more palatable for me. But I do get your complaint, and like I said, thinking about it now, I can't argue with that.
Yeah, I mean,
well, and then
go ahead, Andy. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, so I actually really love the idea of a story about a villain who isn't taken seriously and creates a new persona and shows everyone that he's formidable. Like, I think that's a great idea for a story. Like, if they had done that with, say, Firefly or Mad Hatter, someone that is a joke, and one of those guys, whoever, pick your favorite C-lister, ends up in the Lazarus Pit, ends up getting smarter than anyone ever expected, and then playing the entire Rogues Gallery in Gotham to do his bidding, I think that's a great story. I just don't think that's the Riddler. So, like, they had a great idea, but they just tried to force the square peg into the round hole that was the Riddler.
Yeah.
I just... The changes that were made with Riddler at the end of this film, they just, I mean, changes through. As we've been talking, I've had my DC Universe up, and I've just been flipping through the Hush comic book issues, you know, and truthfully, a lot of this is closer than I actually remembered it was, as far as presentation. You know, a lot of it's abridged and whatnot, but the stuff they did with Riddler, like, first of all, I'm just going to put it out there: the stupid question mark scar on his head is I realize this is comic book stuff, but I mean, even that is just a little too far comic booky for me to really take seriously.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they're trying.
His surgery scar would be a question mark.
I mean, he would have had to, like, requested that. You know what I'm saying? I think they just tried too hard at that moment, you know? That whole ending sequence with him and Batman thrown down, I think they're just trying way too hard to make him something different, something unique, something more powerful, something more threatening. And I'm not a Riddler fan like Andy is, but for some reason I just kept thinking to myself, I don't think this works. I just really don't buy that Riddler has evolved into this, I don't want to say like a Bane-like threat, but I mean so much more of a physical threat to Batman in that moment. Like, they take Riddler's most powerful weapon in the end sequence, and I know the movie has led up to it to this point, but in that ending showdown between the two, they take Riddler's most powerful weapon and they just throw it in the friggin' river, and it's worthless in that moment. His intellect and his smarts are just gone, and it's all about a physical showdown and him using that question mark staff, scythe, whatever you want to call it, to mess Batman up. I had a hard time swallowing that. I really did.
Yeah.
And then the entire time looking at that stupid question mark scar on his forehead, it was an eye roll moment for me. I didn't like that at all. The aesthetic was just not good to me.
Yeah. I agree. The question mark scar, it was just like, how do we make him more creepy and badass, you know? And the other thing that you lose by switching to the Riddler is that now it's not personal to Batman at all. It's literally just, it's just one of my bad guys coming after me like they always do. And it's so personal when it was Tommy. And again, it's not a good mystery when it's Tommy, but it's about Bruce and Tommy and their relationship and their past. And it's a very personal rivalry, whatever, nemesis. And they allude to that in this, where when Tommy Elliott dies and he goes, why would they kill Tommy? He doesn't even know Batman. He goes, nobody knows Bruce. And it's like, ooh, someone's after Bruce, not Batman. And when that person was Tommy, you go, oh, wow, this is a very personal thing. And when it's Riddler, it's like, oh, okay, it's just the Riddler trying to prove a point.
Yeah.
So you lose something there, too. And then I don't like that they killed the Riddler. So, yes, I mean, he dies, and you can always bring him back, I guess. But, like, if this is in continuity, if they were going to do another one, it's like, oh, we're just going to kill the Riddler. I just feel like the people who made this movie don't like the Riddler. And so they were like, we're going to make fun of him, we'll make him the big bad, and we're going to kill him.
Yeah, I can see that.
I can't get mad at him for that, because how many times have the movies done that?
Well, that's true. And again, like if you take it as a one-off, that bothers me less. Right? Like if you just take it as like its own self-contained thing, that doesn't bother me as much, but because this is quote unquote in continuity and there is allegedly more stories to tell, I don't like removing Riddler from the table.
I don't either, but I mean it's such an easy
But I had the same issue with Joker in 1989, so yeah.
Right. I mean at this point established, we know that he knows that he can access a Lazarus pit. And if he truly is, the smartest guy in the room, he's going to have a contingency plan where if something does happen to him, a henchman or somebody is going to deliver his body back to that Lazarus pit and bring him back. I mean, it's the easiest retcon in the world to pull with that.
Oh, yeah, of course. Sure. So anyway, I made my point. For me, that's the one big glaring issue with the movie, why I can't quite love it. That aside, I love so much of everything that leads up to that I still really like the movie. I think Poison Ivy is awesome in the movie. Again, I love how she looks. I think she's great.
She was great.
Yeah, she's fantastic. I do like that they managed to get the little detour to Metropolis in there. I think that's fun, and it's a nice little follow-up to the Death and Return of Superman movies that we got, of having them, kind of their new status quo. I know that he's split some people, but I really like Rainn Wilson as Lex. I really like.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
I'm going to go ahead and heartily disagree with you on that.
I know. Apparently, I'm in the minority. I like him.
Got to go. I can't take it. Like I'm to the point now where if I know he's voicing Lex Luthor in a film, I'm going to mute it and read the subtitles. That's how much I hate it.
And maybe I was thinking of you when I said it, because I was like, I know someone didn't like it, but I liked it. I like him as Lex. I think it works. But
first of all, I don't care for Rainn Wilson anyway. But secondly, that voice that he's using there is just not. It's for me, it's not right at all. I can't take it. I cannot take it.
Well, I like the scene between him and Batman where Batman just breaks into his place and is like, all right, I need you to do this for me. And he's like, sooner you do it, sooner you can go back to bed. I liked all that.
Like I say, I've just been panning through the comics as we've had the discussion. That was actually Talia in the comics, not Lex.
Oh, really? That's interesting. I don't remember
because she was running a division of LexCorp at the time. So.
Mm-hmm. Ah, interesting. So,
yeah, well, in this continuity, that had Talia and Bruce have had that huge falling out. From Bad Blood.
Ah, okay.
And also worth noting in the scene where, he falls down and injures himself and, Catwoman and Batgirl kind of come to his rescue in that moment. That was Huntress, not Batgirl in that sequence. And Catwoman was...
Yeah, that's right. But that's a change that makes perfect sense.
Right.
Because
they haven't introduced Huntress in this continuity, at least not that I can...
Well, yeah, and even so, it's Batgirl. I feel like that... She's higher on the call sheet than Huntress anyway.
Yeah.
So no, that makes perfect sense. They do have the big Batman Superman brouhaha, and we went into it when we reviewed the comic, but they had to include that line that I'm the only one who doesn't like it, but I hate that line.
You know what? That line never bothered me that much when I was reading the book. It's so clumsy the way they make sure they got it inserted into this movie that I'm with you. I hated it. In the movie, there's no reason for it to even be there. Like, it's almost unprovoked for him to come out and say what he said in that moment.
Well, and it's only that way because it's an iconic line from the book. Like, I've seen people quote that line. I've seen little memes with it underneath a picture. People love that line. And so I understand, from a filmmaking perspective where they're like, hey, people love that line. We got to put it in the movie. And I think it was a clever solution to have him say it to Catwoman. But you're right, she doesn't even ask a question. He just starts talking, and he says it.
That's why it's so clumsy. Okay, I'm going to invoke Dark Knight Returns again, and I don't... Whatever. Dark Knight Returns left a lot of, obviously, Batman's inner monologue out of it. So there are lines that so many of us who know that book so well wish were in the movie that just aren't in the movie, or they find another way to insert them in there. But I would rather some of that stuff not be there than to have them force it the way that they did with this particular line in this film. I did not care at all for the presentation with how they handled that.
Just playing catch up for 2 seconds, we're talking about the way he talks about Superman and him, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was about to say that because we're just assuming people know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, he says, yeah, whatever, Clark won't kill me because deep down he's a good person and deep down I'm not. And I hate that line because Batman is a good person. He's dedicated his life to helping people. He's a good person. Like, I know that sounds badass to be like, I'm not a good person. But guess what? Batman is a good person. So, and guess what? At the end of the movie, that's what breaks him and Catwoman up, is that he wants to save every life he can, because guess what? He's a good person. And Catwoman, she's willing to make more sacrifices. And I did like that. Like, even though I don't like that Riddler, quote unquote, dies, but what I do love is that Batman is not willing to let him go, and Catwoman just makes the decision for him. And that's what breaks them up. I'm like, that's actually, I think, a great way to just show that who they are deep down aren't always going to be compatible, and there are just some things that they can't reconcile. So I loved that aspect of it, is the fact that she's just like, tough. To hell with this. He dies, we escape. And for Batman, that was not okay. I love that.
That part was well done. Certainly better done than what we were just talking about a minute ago.
And I do like, for a hot minute, like how that they're partners and they're finally getting along. I do like that, they really do try to make it work. At the beginning, though, it's funny how Bruce really does drag his feet, and because like even when she kisses him, which is a very iconic moment from the comic, and it's they certainly do their best to recreate that moment in the film, and I think they do it pretty successfully. Where she kisses him, you can see him resist and then give in. And that being done in animation is really impressive.
Even that part where like she says that she's coming with him, and he says like, I think it's give me the info and I'll take care of it, and she's like, nope, and he just goes,
Yeah. Well, because he even says, I have a code and revenge isn't part of it, or something like that.
Yeah.
No, I do think that the Bruce and Selina stuff is really strong throughout. Like when he reveals who he is. I like the awkward moment when they're in bed and she sees the scars that she left on him in the past. And she was like, oh, that's when I first got my retractable claws.
Yeah.
So I think all that stuff was really good. I like that quick little montage they have of the two of them, where you get the cameos from the villains that don't play a bigger part in the story. So you get a little Penguin cameo, a little Two-Face cameo, a little Mr. Freeze cameo.
Yeah.
Yep.
I liked how that montage was ended with, I had almost like a Mask of the Phantasm moment where Alfred's coming down with a tray of, tea or whatever, because of course he does, because that's Alfred. And he catches them in the act, so he kind of just like turns around and walks away.
Yeah.
And I love Dick with his, commentary on their relationship.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but the 14-year-old me heard Brendan say I love Dick.
I love Dick, yeah. And then there was that, as soon as I said it, I'm like, shit, I better say something else really quickly because somebody can edit that.
And maybe I shall.
Yeah, that'll be the tag.
Now I've got it.
So.
No.
Yeah, I love his commentary on it. Like, it's so funny.
Oh yeah, like Dick is one of my favorite parts of the movie. Like he has such like a good attitude about the whole thing. I like when he accidentally mentions that Bruce has a son.
Yes, he goes, "Oh, you guys are gonna have so much fun."
Yeah, and like him and Catwoman in the Batmobile is awesome too. Where he's like, "So what's it like dating Batman?" And where she goes, I just can't get him to shut up about his feelings, and he's like, good one. So I liked that relationship too. I think that was really fun.
And I think that it is. You told her, you actually told her. And he's like, "Hey, Alfred, he told her, he did it."
Or when he's talking to Bruce earlier on, and he's like, if you want to make this work, you have to tell her everything. And where he goes, it's none of my business, but if you want to make this work, you've got to tell her everything. And then I think this is right from the book, because I remember it, where Batman goes, you're right, it's none of your business.
And then when Catwoman gets out of the Batmobile and you see Dick just fall ass over head off the bloody, like the gymnastics bars, the look on his face is priceless.
Yeah, all that stuff is great. The Joker doesn't get to play too big of a role in here, but I think he's really good. Backing up in the opera, the singing clown has the same makeup look as the Cesar Romero mask that he wears in the 60s, which then became the Joker mask in The Dark Knight. So it was another nod with like the blue around the mouth and everything.
So the Catwoman's cat named Eartha, while I think of it.
Oh, yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Good call. But so the Joker, I like the way he looks. Again, I really like the voice. I do love when Batman like lays into him and he says something about like, oh, it's such a great joke that you're going to break your rule for something I didn't even do. And I love the moment over at Arkham later when the Riddler is revealed to be Clayface. And Clayface starts attacking Batman, and the Joker is like, "You're seeing another villain already?" And
that was great. That interplay, yeah.
He's just doing the running commentary of feeling so betrayed by Batman while Batman's getting his ass kicked by Clayface. I thought that was awesome. That killed me.
And he's like, just like you to not defend me. And then I love the part too where he's like, Gordon, as always, you're lying around with your thumb up your ass.
Yes. And when he finished, he goes, and scene.
And even the scene outside the opera after Batman leaves, how he's just kind of like, oh, well, back to the grind. Like, who's robbing these days? And then Gordon just like punches him fair in the mouth.
Yeah, who's robbing these days? That's amazing. So no, I think that the Joker stuff was really good. The Harley thing, that's one of the most famous scenes I remember from the book is Harley at the opera. So I thought that was great that they got that in there too. So they get a lot of the stuff in here. Now I don't remember from the book, and maybe you guys do. Is it Tommy that quote unquote dies outside the opera with the Joker? Okay, yes. So all right, so even that was true. So I couldn't remember if I was remembering that right, which is why obviously when it happened I didn't believe it.
Yeah. Well, I'm to the point now where Talia's plane was going down and Bruce rescues her and Ra's al Ghul sticks the sword in the bat computer, in the books. And all I could think to myself in this whole sequence is, this is what I wanted in the movie, and they cut all of this out. Talia's not there. Ra's isn't there. There's a moment where Lady Shiva comes in and rescues Talia from Catwoman. Mm-hmm. Like, Shiva's in this movie for about 15 seconds and doesn't throw a punch.
Right.
It's like, why put Shiva in there if you're not going to use her for what she's known for? That was a little disappointing for me. But
honestly, I watched it twice, and the second time I watched it, I was like, oh, I forgot Lady Shiva was in this. Because you're right, she just pops up at the beginning, and it's just to set up the fact that someone had used a Lazarus pit. And that's it.
Yeah.
I like that we're talking about this movie, and Jamie's just reading the book in the background.
Well, it's because I wanted to be able to make clear parallels between what was changed and what was stayed the same. Like the whole Joker thing, like that's, and I'm using air quotes because air quotes are good for radio. That's almost the panel for panel sequence in this movie. From the Harley at the opera to outside with Tommy and the Joker is spot on. I mean that.
Yeah.
Even my dog.
And the dog agrees.
Even she.
Thanks, Cruz.
Something we haven't mentioned is, and this is when I first watched it, I was like, oh, Andy's going to love this, is how they did incorporate, we say that you can't animate like Jim Lee, but they did give him the blue and gray suit.
Oh, thank you. Yes, thank you. So, yeah, after his big injury, because I'm not super against the in-continuity movies that they're doing for animation, but I've never been in love with Batman's look, especially his ears. His ears have always looked weird.
His ears have looked odd.
For the whole in continuity ones. And so the fact that they wrote in a reason for him to don the gray and blue, oh man, you're right. It made me so happy. And he looked amazing. Please don't change back. Please leave it on.
Yes, keep it the same.
Keep it. It's so good. So yes, I was so happy when that happened. And honestly, I hadn't even thought about it. Because I just accepted, it's one of the in-continuity ones. He'll just look like that. At this point, I'd already accepted it. And so when that suit comes up in the Batcave, I was like, oh, really? They're doing this? Oh, that's amazing. So, yes, that made me very happy. I love that. I did also like the very creepy action scene in the graveyard with the Scarecrow. Naturally. Because it was just so cool.
how sharp is his bloody scythe thing? Same with Riddler's. Like, seriously, those things are so sharp.
Very, very sharp. And again, yeah, like even then I was like, yeah, see, it's Tommy Elliott. See, like someone dug him up. And I do like when they finally confirm that no, it's not, because like Riddler like has his body hanging.
Yes.
Wherever the hell they are. It's some variation of Ace Chemicals, but I don't think it actually is Ace Chemicals, right?
Don't think so, no.
It just feels like it. It feels like it might as well be.
Generic
but
warehouse, whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, another creepy abandoned warehouse in Gotham. They're a dime a dozen. Yeah. Gotham has no shortage of them. So yeah.
And this one even has an anagram of the crossword puzzle inventor that he was using earlier. That's mighty.
That's right.
You know, what are you going to do?
That's right. I did like that, though. I did like that the Riddler was like, oh, he'll find us in a few minutes because he's going to do this and he's going to do this and he's going to do this and he's going to do this.
That's
like that I really like. That's very much the Riddler. Absolutely. But guess what? The Riddler doesn't have to go in the Lazarus pit to do that because that's what he already should be doing.
Something that I thought of before while we were chatting as well, like how we were talking about, you know, Riddler being A-list, B-list, whatever, is you've only got to go back to after The Dark Knight in 2008. Like, who was the villain that everybody wanted to be the big bad in Dark Knight? Well, the third Dark Knight movie at that stage. It was the Riddler.
Yeah.
Because everybody was trying to wash the taste of Jim Carrey out of their mouths. That's why.
Oh, that was him, Brendan. That was him.
I'm just letting it go through. That's fine.
I mean, but he's right. Oh, the only other thing I was going to say real quick that I got sidetracked, but I said that almost every villain looks amazing, and I stand by that. Again, I think that Catwoman looks great, Poison Ivy looks great, Bane looks great, Joker, Harley, they look great. I did not like the look of Mr. Freeze in that quick little...
Yeah.
He looked like a big marshmallow man. He looked like Stay Puft. So like I was like, ew, like don't do that. Mr. Freeze can look so awesome. Why the hell did you do that? I loved how the Scarecrow looked.
Scarecrow was awesome. Look, I can't remember if I
awesome
said this,
and weird.
I can't remember if I said this before, but I was just thinking it. But when when Tommy is dead in the alley outside, because I remembered in the book how Jason Todd is meant to come back to life, and from memory that's where it's Clayface. That's where I thought they were going to introduce Clayface. I thought it would be him that was being Tommy Elliott, outside. I thought that would have been a change they made there to sort of still include Clayface, but cut out the Jason Todd thing. Yeah, obviously that's not where they went with it. But
no, it's funny. I think I said this when we reviewed the book, is that when this book came out, I wasn't actively reading comics, but I remember flipping through it at the Virgin Megastore in Orlando, Florida. And it was the issue where Hush was quote unquote revealed to be Jason Todd. Okay. And so I went, oh, okay, so it's Jason Todd. And I never finished the story. And so for years, I thought Hush was Jason Todd because I didn't know it was a red herring until I actually finally read the whole thing. And I was like, oh, how dumb. It wasn't him. But yeah, for years, I just was like, oh yeah, Hush, isn't that Jason Todd in disguise?
That kind of seeded the whole return of Jason Todd too.
Yeah, that was kind of the start of it. I do think that the story they went with, the Riddler having this brain tumor, in order for a way to connect him with Tommy Elliott and also like give something of an excuse for the bandages, I think that's actually pretty clever too. Because otherwise, why is Tommy Elliott even in the story if not to be a red herring? So, I thought that was actually kind of a good solution. I agree you didn't need the scar, but as far as like trying to make this new ending work with what was set up, is like, why is Tommy Elliott here? I actually did appreciate that.
And what you think's a throwaway line early in the movie, once I went back and watched it for the second time, you're like, oh, I see how Tommy says to Bruce, like, he has, I can't remember exactly how it's worded, so I'm paraphrasing, but like, he's operated on and has some really, hardcore clients, and Bruce is like, something or other, and Tommy's like, oh, you have no idea. So he alludes to the fact that he's worked on some bizarre people, heavy, hard-hitting people in the past, and obviously when you go back and watch it the second time, you're like, oh, that actually means something.
No, that's a good point. Well, cool. Anyway, let's wrap it up. Let's give some closing thoughts and some letter grades. Jamie, Hush.
Enjoyable film, probably more the upper middle tier of DC animated films for me. I mean, I'm going to have to watch it a time or two more to really get that in concrete, but I don't think it's bad. I mean, there's a couple things I definitely didn't care for with it, but nobody's ever can be perfect with it. But overall, I found it enjoyable. I mean, I appreciate again, Catwoman and the relationship between she and Batman are really probably the bigger highlights of it for me. Damian's cameo was excellent. The transition to the blue and gray suit, I'm glad you guys brought that up, because that was another thing that I thought was really good with it. And just way more to like about this one than I think there is to dislike. Falls short of perfect, but that's just how things go. I don't think there's any unforgivable sin going on with this film to the point where I'm going to say, no, this is a failed effort. I don't think it's a failed effort. I just think some of the ambition probably reached beyond where they were capable of sticking the landing with. Overall, I think I'm probably going to be just shy of B+. I'm like high B, just shy of B+ with this one.
While Jamie was talking, I was just trying to think of all sort of the quote-unquote solo Batman movies that we've had in the continuity DC animated films. I know there's like Bad Blood, there's Batman versus Robin. I think I'm missing one, maybe one or two. But
there was Son of Batman.
That's the one. That's the other,
Batman versus Robin, Batman Bad Blood.
Yeah. So in terms of the continuity films, and if you're looking at just Batman-centric movies, it's definitely the best, I think, out of the ones that we've had in the continuity. Overall, I still think Under the Red Hood's probably the best of the just Batman animated films. But yeah, it's enjoyable. It's like I said, I just keep coming back to Gotham by Gaslight. It's very much it's a faithful adaptation to a degree. It keeps the heart of the story. It just changes it for a different medium, and I think it works. I don't have as big a problem with it as you guys do in terms of the reveal and everything. But could it have been better? Yes. It's a fun Batman movie, in my opinion. It's great seeing all these villains finally, have their dues in the continuity film. So for me, I'm going to go, I'd say solid B.
Nice. And no, I agree with all of that. Like I said, I mostly loved it. I just think that the ending doesn't work, especially if you think about it for more than a minute or two. But everything up until then, I think, works great. I think that the writing up until then is great. I think the writing between Bruce and Selina is awesome, and I think it makes for a really strong core of the film. I love the parade of the Batman villains. I love it. Maybe it's fan service. I don't care. It's so cool to see everyone in one movie, in one story, and to see these versions of these characters mixing it up. I love it. So yeah, I think the animation, as I said at the beginning, is also really great, and I think they did a really good job of distilling Hush down into an hour and 20-minute movie. I just wish they'd stick the landing, but for me, that ending isn't enough for me to discount the entire film, because I had such a good time watching it, and it is so it's like so deep into Batman's world, and I love that, because I think it's sort of what you were alluding to, Brendan, is we don't get a lot of these, even though Batman headlines so many of these movies, we don't get one that's just only Batman's world. It seems like there's always other pieces incorporated.
And when you think about it, even Bad Blood, it's not Bruce.
Right, exactly. So I just love that this is just so unabashedly a Batman story, a Batman movie, and it incorporates so many different facets and elements of Batman's world, and that's the fun of it. So I had a really good time with it. And so, yeah, for me, I'm with you guys. It's a B. It's a really good movie that just falls a little bit short as far as I'm concerned. So I think we're all in agreement. 3 Bs for Batman Hush, the animated film. And yeah, if you're a Batman fan, I think you're going to have a great time with it. It's still really entertaining. Along with Batman Hush came the return of the DC Showcase animated shorts.
It did?
Did either of you guys watch the Sergeant Rock animated short?
No.
Well, so first of all, I got to give a shout out to our pal Ryan Lower. He was so nice. He sent me a digital copy of this movie. I was waiting for DC Universe, and he sent it to me digitally. So it was on the extras of the digital copy, but it's not on DC Universe. At least not that I could find.
I'll probably get it on the Blu-ray tomorrow then.
But yeah, it'll be on the disc, and it's on the iTunes copy. So then I won't go too deep into it, but I did watch it, and I'm not a Sergeant Rock fan. Like, I don't dislike him, but I've never read a Sergeant Rock comic ever, because it's like war and guns and World War II, and like I'm not into that at all, especially when it comes to comic books. Like, I read my comic books for my superheroes, like not for soldiers in war. Like, so never had an interest in Sergeant Rock at all. So when they said they were doing this animated short, I was like, oh, Sergeant Rock, really? Okay. So I was still going to watch it because, of course, it came with it. So I watched it, and it starts out, and it is very much what I expected, which is like, oh, Sergeant Rock and a bunch of soldiers in World War II and explosions and guns and tanks. And I'm just like, okay, like, whatever.
Given I've done a bit of a World War II deep dive this year, it sounds like I might actually like it.
Well, wait for it. When it started, it was what I expected it to be, and I hate war movies. I don't find them entertaining at all. It is not my thing. So I wasn't interested in the Sergeant Rock animated short, is my point. But after the first little intro, which is very war-y, there is a very fantastical element to it that comes into play that's very comic booky, and Sergeant Rock is enlisted with a new troop, and his new troop are monsters.
Okay.
So
now it's got Andy's attention.
And now all of a sudden I'm interested. So he has 3 soldiers with him. One is a vampire, one is a werewolf, and one is Frankenstein's monster.
Oh, shit.
And it's awesome. And it's so good. It's so good. So apparently these characters, I had never even heard of them before, but they are called the Creature Commandos.
Huh.
Have you guys heard of them?
I've heard of it, but I don't carry any kind of familiarity with it at all.
I had never even heard of them, but I was like trying to find it on DC Universe. I was trying to find this short so I could tell you to watch it, Jamie. And I found there's a section within movies and TV that just says shorts. And in the shorts, there are 3 little silly shorts of the Creature Commandos that aired on Cartoon Network like 5 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. And so I looked it up. The Creature Commandos, yeah, they were created in 1980, and yeah, that it was what I just said. It was a troop in World War II that were comprised of monsters, and there was a 4th one, and it was a female, and she was a Gorgon, so like a Medusa. She's not in the Sergeant Rock short. I guess they just tried to pare it down since the short's 14 minutes long. But anyway, Sergeant Rock commands a vampire, a werewolf, and Frankenstein's monster against a troop of zombie soldiers. And boy, was I wrong. It's awesome. So guys, check it out when you get a chance, because I had no interest and I really liked it.
I'm looking at the art on the DC Nation Shorts thing, and that's an interesting Frankenstein they've got there.
So yeah, the one on the shorts, they're like a little more cartoony and goofy than the ones that are in the new one.
When I say interesting, I was not being sarcastic or ironic. I actually do kind of like, I like it when people play with it and just don't try to make it look like another version of like a Boris Karloff, you know?
Right. Well, yeah, and this is the Frankenstein, I guess, that eventually he got his own book in the New 52.
Oh, the Agents of Shade Frankenstein?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who I always liked. I thought he was cool. But anyway, so take that as you will. Check out the DC Showcase short of Sergeant Rock, because I was pleasantly surprised. They found a way to get me interested. But lots of stuff to watch. And hopefully, like, I would think they would put those shorts on DC Universe. It's so weird that they don't. Maybe they will. But one thing that is on DC Universe is Batman Beyond. So we are continuing our journey through Batman Beyond. We're up to episode number 5. This one is Meltdown, and this one's interesting because we've already reviewed it on this show because it was part of the Mr. Freeze saga. What happens is the big bad guy in Batman Beyond, Powers, he's having issues with his radioactivity and it's getting more strong, and his skin coat is lasting shorter and shorter and shorter. And so he has this doctor, and she's like, maybe there's a way to put you in a body that is more stable. But we aren't going to do it to you until we test it on someone else. And so who do they happen to have? They have the preserved head of Victor Freeze. Because if you remember where we left him in the New Batman Adventures, is he was like a living head. Kind of like Futurama.
Just getting ready to make that parallel. But
yeah, so he's in the Head Museum along with Richard Nixon. That's what he's doing. They're debating politics with Eternity. Anyway, so they take Mr. Freeze's head out of cold storage, put him in a new body. And he's like got a new lease on life, and he's trying to make amends for all the mistakes he's made. And he's got, he's going to try and do the best he can with this new future. But unfortunately, he starts to revert. And as this is all going on, like, Terry McGinnis wants to believe the best in Mr. Freeze. And so he's like, no, he's really trying to make an effort. He's a new man. And Bruce is like, I don't trust him. Keep an eye on him. You got to keep watching him. So they sort of disagree on this. Victor starts to revert, and he starts to have a hard time in the heat again, or he starts getting overheated, and they're like, it didn't work, something went wrong, there's some issue with the DNA, and they realize, the only way to find out what went wrong is to dissect him. And so Powers and this female doctor who had a relationship with Mr. Freeze, they're going to dissect him, and Mr. Freeze loses his shit and runs off. He had an extra suit in storage somewhere, and he comes back to exact his revenge on Powers, on the doctor, and on everyone around Wayne Powers. And he's going to blow up the whole place with himself in it. And so Terry, as Batman, has to step in, has to save Powers, has to bring down Mr. Freeze, poor Victor Freeze, he's just tragic. Like, things never go his way, that poor guy. And so Victor ends up defeated, and he what does he fall? Does he fall into something? Anyway, it's one of those vague deaths where it's like he's dead, but he
was inside of the building that was collapsing because of the weight of the ice that was on the ceiling and whatnot. And he threw up an ice wall so that Batman couldn't get in there and save him. He was just resigning himself to his fate at that point. Yeah,
which is also very Mr. Freeze. So he ends up under this collapsing building. They're like, oh, okay, I think he's finally gone. Again, he can always come back. But then Terry and Bruce have a moment where Terry's like, I guess you were right about him, Bruce. And Bruce is like, we both were. And that is the end of the episode. That is Meltdown, episode number 5. So, again, we reviewed it in the past. I don't remember what we said about it. But, Jamie, thanks for rewatching it.
Yeah. As I recall, I pretty much enjoyed it the first time I watched it, but now that I've got a little bit more context, as I recall, and it's very hazy, I was kind of puzzled by Powers because I didn't really know who he was watching it. I obviously know who Batman is. I obviously know who Mr. Freeze is. So,
are you saying you had a hard time the first time because you came in cold?
Ah!
I hate you.
That one's for you, Tim.
Anyway, continue.
No, I just seeing it in the context of the series as I'm watching it, I think it just it blends together really well. Like, the last time we talked about that Golem episode, I thought they shortchanged Batman a little bit too much, trying to introduce this new villain. Well, in this case, Batman, it's still weird to call Terry Batman, but I mean, I guess that's who he is in this show, so I guess I'll keep going with it. He has more to do in this one, but not a lot more. But they keep him involved enough that I can still, say, okay, this is an episode involving Batman, and Bruce's involvement and his history and distrust with that. You and I talked about, how the struggle with this show was to create a whole new rogues gallery. Well, in this case, that's not what they had to do. They had to revamp a previous member of a rogues gallery to bring him in. So you get somebody out of storage, if you will, to bring them back out for this new show to have some appeal and some recognizability with that. So you don't have to go through a whole nother origin story or anything in that respect. I like this episode. I mean, it's not like a favorite where I'm going to sit down and watch it a couple times a year or anything, but I really think it's well done because, that whole Freeze saga plays so much on the tragedy, and that poor guy, man, that's SOB can't catch a break. I feel bad for him. I really do.
I know.
But I guess the one question I want to ask, am I not remembering where it was mentioned in this episode or a previous episode what the ultimate fate of Nora Freeze was?
No, I want to say it was in Sub-Zero. I feel like she was revived.
Oh, that's right.
And then in the new Batman Adventures, they find out that even though she was revived, Victor never went back to her because his body died, and so he was like a monster. So he didn't want to go face her. If I'm remembering it correctly.
No, I think you're probably right. Yeah, that sounds right. I just this episode, I like the back and forth of Bruce and Terry. Bruce doesn't want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Terry does, and I love the closure of Bruce saying we were both right, because they were.
Yeah.
Ultimately. Mm-hmm. So I just think it was well done, well put together. I think it's a good episode. I don't think it's amazing. I think it's really, really good. I'd say this is probably my favorite of the Batman Beyond episodes that we've covered so far. And I know we're like way early in that. I think this is the 5th episode we've done, but I think this is my favorite that we've done so far.
All right. I'd ask Brandon his thought, or Brendan.
Just gonna say, who the hell is Brandon?
Brandon's the guy that actually watched the episode for this show.
Look,
yeah,
I would
ask Brendan, but Brendan was a slacker and didn't watch the show.
Now, I know you're going to edit that out. No, look.
God damn it. I was taking a sip of coffee when you said that, dirtbag.
But just bleep it enough so people get the gist of what you just called me. Look, I will be honest, and I know people after the way I was the first episode talking about Batman Beyond are going to call bullshit. But I swear on my signed Val Kilmer Ultimate Batman that I honestly forgot. Because I've had a busy couple of days, Jess is away, and I only had time to squeeze in Hush to rewatch it literally just before we started recording. And it's as I was getting my headphones, I was like, oh, this won't be too long. We'll cover Hush and do Wayman and Mailbox. And I was like, oh, crap. I totally forgot about Batman Beyond. So I do apologize. It's not because of the way I feel about that show. I legitimately forgot.
Sure, Jan.
No, and I actually felt really bad when I realized, because I knew everyone would think that I was full of shit. But I'm, like I said, I swear on my signed Val Kilmer Ultimate Batman, and people know how much I care about that thing, so I'm not lying.
So you swear on something that's worth $5?
Yeah.
That means a whole lot.
Hey, to me it's worth a lot. Okay, I swear on my first appearance of Harley Quinn comic.
Okay, all right, whatever. It's fine. Our listeners don't want to hear what you have to say about Batman Beyond anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I've kind of saved them. But although you talking about it, it makes me want to grab the DVD and watch it, because that does actually sound really cool.
Well, I will tell you this is my favorite episode of Batman Beyond.
Nice.
It's great. It's great. And again, I don't think I've watched every episode of Batman Beyond, but when I think about, if I'm going to watch one episode, it's this one. Because, number one, I'm a sucker for Mr. Freeze. And I love that, there are certain villains that allowed them to bring them into this show, and Mr. Freeze is one of them, and I think they do a great job with it. I think it is a great ending to the animated Mr. Freeze saga. It is tragic, of course, but God, you always just feel for him. He's a villain that you can't help but sympathize with, and they really bring that to the forefront here. And I think that the Terry and Bruce disagreeing about how they should treat Victor is really great too. So I think it's a great episode. It's a really good one that incorporates what's going on currently with Powers, but also finds a way to bring Mr. Freeze in, allows Terry and Bruce to disagree on it, and it's a great episode. So yeah, I would say even if you're not a Batman Beyond fan, you should still watch this one, especially if you're a Mr. Freeze fan. And his new suit looks super cool. So anyway, I love this one. Jamie, letter grade?
I think I'm in an A- territory with this one.
All right. Brendan, who cares? I would go a big solid A. This is a great episode of the show. So Meltdown, an A- and an A and a NA. So next one will be episode number 6, Heroes. We could be heroes just for one day. Anyway, so yeah, that's your homework for next time. And now we're going to check in with you, our friends, as we crack open the Wayne Manor mailbox. Goddamn lazy. It's time again for the Wayne Manor mailbox.
You've got mail.
What is a letter for me?
Maybe temporary.
She wrote a letter.
You're one hell of a messenger. This is all Master Wayne.
First email here is from Willis Orr. It says, "Greetings, Bat Family. Is there one Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that you would watch first? Which one would it be? Batman or Robin or Red Sonja? Also, what's your favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie and role?" Thanks, Willis. Okay, so you're saying, would I rather watch Batman and Robin or Red Sonja? And then what's my favorite Schwarzenegger movie? Jamie, what do you think?
Red Sonja. Because as bad as that movie is, I guess I'd have that like guilty pleasure territory. I recognize it's not good. I know it's not good, but somehow it works for me. I mean, I know a lot of people say the same thing about Batman and Robin. I ain't one of them. Red Sonja didn't kill my childhood. Batman and Robin tried to.
Okay. And then what's your favorite Schwarzenegger movie and role?
Oh, favorite Schwarzenegger movie. I should say Last Action Hero just to see what kind of hate I can get. But on a serious answer, probably the first Terminator movie. I mean, that's probably the one that I enjoy and go back to the most. I know the popular answer is Terminator 2, but I think Terminator 1's the superior film. I always have.
I think Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, puts them both to shame. So
I actually don't mind that one. You know what?
I actually really do like it. Like I always like.
Is
I was
the only
embarrassed.
Terminator film I can't watch. Seriously, even the Christian Bale one.
Salvation?
Yes, thank you. I even kind of like that one for what it is.
La-di-da, good for you.
Yep.
Yes, but it did give us that. Brendan, what about you?
I've
Schwarzenegger.
never seen Red Sonja, so I can't comment. But even then, I'd probably, if they were both in front of me, I'd maybe go for it, something different, so I wouldn't have to sit through Batman and Robin again. And yeah, I know the popular answer would be to say T2, but I'm going to say Kindergarten Cop.
Interesting.
Oh my God.
I actually like that movie. Like, I don't know.
You are one weird dude.
I watched it a lot as a kid. I like that movie. I don't know what else to tell you. I said I could have said Jingle All the Way, but I decided not to.
That would have got him to hang up on you. You know that.
Yeah,
right?
no, exactly.
I think he hates that worse than I hate Batman and Robin.
Do you want to get fired? That's how you get fired. Yeah, I've never seen Red Sonja, so I.
That was Brigitte Nielsen in her prime. I mean, let's at least acknowledge that.
Yeah, I guess I'd watch that, but I also have actively chosen to watch Batman and Robin as an adult for some reason. So, I don't know. Favorite Schwarzenegger movie and role? Like, yeah, I guess like the honest answer probably is T2, but I got to give a special, like, if I'm not doing T2 because it's like so obvious, I got to go with The Running Man. I love The Running Man.
That's a great film.
That movie's awesome. So there you go. A little Schwarzenegger.
That movie
love.
was the height of 1980s one-liners as you off guys. Great stuff.
Oh, it's so good.
Let me give a quick shout out to Commando too, because that movie's underappreciated. I think that movie got swept under the rug as a piece of shit. And you know what? If you think it is, cool, but I love that movie and I think it's great.
All right. Next message is from Christian. It says, "Hey, Holy BatCast crew, I'm so glad you guys started reviewing Batman Beyond. There's some fan-freaking-tastic episodes in the show and some great classic Batman moments. Thanks for starting for your loving listeners. As far as your take on the first 3 episodes, Jamie and Brendan honestly shocked me. I think Jamie is doing a far better job at putting aside the not my Batman complaint and taking the show for what it is than Brendan is. That blew my mind. As a word of encouragement to those two, I'll just say that the first season of any TV show is rarely the greatest example of its potential. Keep at it. Maybe you'll fall in love with season 2. I do have one question for you. If you were to cast a live-action Batman Beyond Return of the Joker movie, what would be your picks? For me, Terry McGinnis would be Charlie Heaton, Harrison Ford as old Bruce Wayne, Joe Gilgun as the Joker. He's Cassidy on the TV show Preacher. I guess I'll reuse Margot Robbie as Harley because she's so good, Gillian Anderson as Barbara Gordon, Nathan Fillion as Tim Drake, and the DD twins played by Emma Stone. Thanks as always for keeping this thing going." Christian, thank you for the message. All right, well, casting Batman Beyond Return of the Joker.
God.
Jamie?
Kevin Conroy as old Batman, Mark Hamill as old Joker.
Well, except remember, Joker's not really old.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He's kind of in his prime.
I'd still do Mark Hamill just because.
He deserves it. Do you know who I would go with for Joker? Because I feel like it came up somewhat recently in
Daniel
one of our shows. No, not Daniel Stern. Alan Tudyk.
Yes.
Okay, I'd see that. I'll bite on that. Yeah, let's do that. I kind of like Nathan Fillion as Tim Drake too. I mean, I don't know why
cool.
that kind of works. I'm not a Gillian Anderson fan, but having her play old Barbara Gordon, I think that might work too.
Yeah, I think that's kind of smart. Obviously, Michael Keaton should be Bruce. Obviously. Terry, who would be Terry? I can't, like, someone teenagery. I don't know enough teenagers.
I haven't watched the show since season 1, and I'm probably going to be way off. Andy, you're going to have to help me here. 13 Reasons Why, the kid with the leather jacket that was distributing the tapes.
Oh, I love him. Yes. Tony.
Think he's too old for the part?
Not necessarily.
I kind of see him with that. I would go with that for my answer.
Yeah. Cool with that. Brendan, any thoughts on these?
I'm going to have to go Conroy as Bruce. I'm going to say Paul Bettany as the Joker.
Okay. I can dig it.
Who else did we have? What's the name of the guy who plays Steve on Stranger Things?
Steve.
Steve, yeah. I wonder if he'd be an okay Terry.
I'd go with that.
Joe Keery,
Sure.
his name is.
Okay.
Who else do we have? I'm not too sure. Yeah, I mean, that's sort of your main 3. I'd have to give a lot more thought to the others.
Yeah.
I hate these
fan casting takes
It's so
prep.
hard, yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to do off the top of your head. Well, we gave you some options.
Actually, just for an aesthetic, if you sort of take away the accent and things like that, old mate who's playing Alfred in Pennyworth at the moment would be an okay Terry.
I feel like he's a little old.
Yeah, true.
But again, like, it's hard to come up with people off the top of your head, so
yeah,
I get it.
I'm surprised. I'm just surprised
right.
Jack can cast Lawrence Fishburne.
I mean, why can't he just play everything?
I'd watch him if he played everything.
I think he should play Barbara Gordon. All right. Next message here is from Miles. It says, "Hey, Andy, maybe Brendan, maybe Jamie. Hey, you get all 3 of us, the 3 Musketeers. I know we all have our preferences, but as comic fans, we all benefit from the success of superhero franchises, no matter what logo precedes them. I was wondering if this is kind of interesting. If you could pick one strength of the MCU that you wish DC would learn, adapt, or mimic, and then one strength of DC that you wish the MCU would learn, adapt, mimic. Thanks. Love the show as always. So a strength of the MCU that you wish DC would use, and a strength of DC that the MCU would use.
We're talking strictly in the capacity of movies and theaters and such, right?
It sounds like movies, yes.
Okay.
Since he says MCU. Either of you guys want to jump on? You need to...
I mean, I think for me, the DC could learn from the MCU is obviously... I don't want to say the word success, but do you know what I'm trying to say? Like I said, I'm trying to not use the word success, but
I mean, I think we might be thinking in the same way, but like for me, one thing that DC could learn from the MCU is consistency.
Yes, that's a better word. Thank you.
Like having a plan, sticking to the plan, and believing in the plan, because I think one of the biggest issues with the DC films has been each one has tried to course correct from the one before it, and it just makes a mess. Whereas the MCU has just stuck to it. And like, even though sure there have been setbacks along the way, by sticking to it, they've developed this consistency. And I think that's something that DC could learn from the MCU. And on the other hand, I think that the MCU could learn from DC a little more variety and a little more risk-taking.
Those sound as good as anything to me, so I'm just going to go ahead and sign off on all of that.
So I feel like the DC films all feel a little more unique. And, you know, and I don't want to start a thing, but like, you know, a lot of people will say the MCU movies all feel very similar, and then the MCU diehards will say that's not true. I feel like there's a certain amount of sameness. And so I would like to see a little more variety, the way I think the DC films have been. You
know what? The same people that take offense to saying that the MCU uses the same formula are the ones that say all the DC EU films are edgelord darkness and all that other crap. It's frankly an argument and a debate I'm tired of. Like, I logged into Twitter the other day and saw like 4 threads of conversation with people arguing over which was better between the two and which was more faithful to the comic books between the two. And I saw those 4 things and I was like, nope, I'm out. And I was off Twitter the rest of the day because I am so sick of that argument. Sick to death of it.
Understandable. Next message here is from Stephen Marshall. It says, hey, Andy, Jamie, and Brendan. Have you guys ever read Batman Year 100? If so, what did you think? I thought it was a fantastic book. I really loved the mystique over whether it's still Bruce Wayne or not. Also, where do you stand on fan films? I know this is horror, but Womp Stomp Films did a Friday the 13th fan film, Never Hike Alone, which I think shows that if you spend the money correctly, you can make something truly special. I think for me, we've yet to see a superhero fan film that really stands out, but I think it's possible. I'm starting the early journey of making a Superman fan film. Thanks. Sorry for the long email. Kind regards, Steven. Thanks, Steven, and always good to hear from you. So, Batman Year 100 and then fan films. Jamie?
I have not read it. I think I've heard it talked about before, but it's not one that I've ever gotten around to. Probably should sooner than later, but, you know, so many other things to read, watch, and do in my old age now. Fan films, I don't have any issue with them, and I encourage the hell out of people to do them because I think it's amazing that they can express the creativity that way. Like, you know, back in the day, there wasn't a lot of that sort of a thing. You know, people were writing fan fiction out as, you know, scripted kind of stuff to read on the internet or just, you know, for their own personal enjoyment, what have you. So I just think this is the next level of people expressing that sort of a thing about the content that they like. I don't watch a lot of it myself. Frankly, the only fan film sort of a thing that I do watch is I don't even remember what it's called, like Superhero Showdown maybe. I've watched Batman fight Deadpool. I've watched Batman fight Darth Vader. I've watched Batman fight Wolverine. Some of that stuff is interesting. It's just not something I'm like really deep into getting into all of it. But I love it. I think it's a great way to express yourself with characters that you love. And who knows what can come out. I mean, if studios were paying attention to that, obviously these people are making these films because they're passionate about it. They're not doing it for the fame and fortune aspect. But if Marvel or DC or whoever would fish through that sort of a thing and see who's got a really good eye and a passion for it, maybe start, pulling stuff out of there, because that might be where you find the people that can make the best films. Just throwing it. I don't know if that's a great idea or not, but
fan films, I like them. I mean, full credit. What was the guy's name? Sorry.
This was Steven.
Like, full credit. Like, a Superman fan film. Like, that's quite a task. In terms of your effects and everything. So, like, full credit. I hope it all pans out really well. And what was the first part of the question? I just got stuck on the fan film side of it. Kept thinking about trying to do a Superman fan film. Oh yeah, Year 100. I've never read it. I've looked at it in the in the comic shop a few times, but the art just does nothing for me. So I've never done more than kind of look at it, flip through it, and go nah.
All right. So I've not read Year 100 either, so make it 3. And then I agree. I think fan films are fun, and when I see them, I will watch them. I don't seek them out, but sometimes I'll happen upon them on YouTube and I'll watch them, and I think they can be a lot of fun. Some can be really impressive. And just huge kudos to the people who put their time, money, and energy into creating something. I think that's really great. So congrats and good luck on your Superman one. Next question here is from Joel Haas. It just says, hey, Holy BatCasters, you had a listener question about after Nightfall, stories that were after Nightfall, but they weren't about Jean-Paul Valley. He said, Night Quest, The Search is where Bruce goes after Chandra and Tim's dad. So just as a heads up to whoever asked that question on the last one, thanks, Joel. There's another option to follow post Nightfall. This message here is from Tommy Sanders. It says, hey, Andy and Jamie and possibly Brendan, will we see Mark Hamill as the Joker on the Crisis on Infinite Earths? Speaking of Mark Hamill, I have a Star Wars question. Do you know why George Lucas didn't let David Prowse play Anakin Skywalker at the end of Return of the Jedi? Actor Sebastian Shaw played Anakin. Tommy, thank you for the message. What do you guys think? You think Mark Hamill's going to show up as the Joker?
I hope he shows up in some capacity. I don't know what it will be, but...
Yeah, because it seemed like it was a rumor, and then it seemed like it was debunked, but to me it would be odd that you would be getting all these other people and he wouldn't show up in some capacity, especially because he showed up as some variation of the Joker on The Flash, right?
Trickster.
It was like the old Trickster, right? Yeah. So I don't see why he wouldn't show up in some way.
Here's what I think about this. Either Hamill is busy, committed to other things and couldn't do it, or he's already smack dab in the middle of doing it, because I don't know how television filming and scheduling is working, but I have to believe that they're in the thick of doing all of this right now. So if they haven't already gotten him, they're not going to.
Okay.
That's just how I feel about it. And maybe they're just trying to keep it under wraps and make it like a big surprise reveal since we know about all the other stuff. But the flip side of that is that's such a big get. Why wouldn't you want the entire planet to know about it?
For sure. And I like Star Wars, but I don't know the true story of why David Prowse didn't get to play Anakin at the end of Jedi. Jamie, do you have any idea?
My guess, and this is purely my own personal speculation, he's not exactly camera friendly. Like, he's a big, buff, really good, in-shape dude, but he's kind of strange looking. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, maybe he just, in a nicer way, he just didn't have the look they were going for Anakin. He had the physicality for Darth Vader, but they probably wanted a specific look for how Anakin should look. Two different jobs.
Poor Sebastian Shaw's been cut out now anyway, so.
Yeah. All right, next message here is from Ulysses George. It says, hey guys, I hope you're doing fantastic. It's been a busy week. Being an adult sucks. Anyway, I have some questions. Since we're getting a new composer for the Batman, who will you choose? You can't pick Zimmer, Elfman, James Newton Howard, or Junkie XL since they've already done Batman. My pick is Alexandre Desplat. I'm sure I said that wrong. Who did the final Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Parts 1 and 2. It's really good. Number 2, since Batman's been in a ton of relationships, who do you guys ship with Batman? Mine is Batman and Wonder Woman. We don't have enough of that in the comics, and only in the animated show. Thanks for being the best podcast out there. I hope you are relaxing, listening to Batman music, and reading comics. Thanks. Thanks, Ulysses. All right, so I feel like we've answered the composer question before.
Yeah, we have, and I didn't know an answer to the question then either.
All signs point that it's going to be Michael Giacchino. But if that's off the table and we can pick whoever we want... Jamie, any thoughts?
Tiny Tim.
Great. It's terrific. Brendan, did you not have any thoughts?
I'll say who I said last time, Elliot Goldenthal.
God damn it. You gotta ruin everything.
Jamie,
did you have a real answer?
Not really. I mean, I guess my default answer to any movie score that's not yet taken or anything like that is always Daft Punk or Disaster Piece right now. So
That's true. I would go with Henry Jackman. I love him. He's terrific. I would go with Harry Gregson Williams, whose brother has done Wonder Woman and Aquaman now, so they can keep it in the family. And Alan Silvestri, he did great on the Avengers films. So there's a couple other options, but I think it'll be Giacchino, and I have no problem with that. And then who do you ship with Batman? I know your answer, Jamie, but tell the folks at home.
For a default answer, I'd have to go somewhere between Talia al Ghul and Andrea Beaumont.
Oh, I didn't expect Andrea, but I assume you're a big Al Ghul fan, so I just figured you'd want Talia.
I mean, it's such a strained relationship with the two of them, and it's doomed before it gets started. That's kind of why I had to throw Andrea in there after that. And Andrea is not in actual continuity until January, so we'll have to compromise between the two of them is my answer, I guess.
All right. Brendan, what about you? Who do you want Batman to be with?
Look, I actually really like the Batman and Catwoman relationship. Otherwise, I like the likes of, I do like, and I'm not talking just in movies here, I'm talking in the comics and stuff. I do like it when he's with a Vicky Vale or a Silver St. Cloud. I liked, and again, people probably are going to hate this, but I liked Silver St. Cloud in Kevin Smith's Cacophony run. I liked that. But I don't know, told well, I've always liked Batman and Catwoman together. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I'm the same. It's not the most original answer, but no, I feel like of everyone, Batman and Catwoman fit the best. I still don't feel like they are destined to live happily ever after, because that's not them. But I don't, in Dark Knight Rises, I didn't mind that was where they left it. But yeah, I think the best match for Bruce is Selina. For me, that's the best answer. All right, next message is from Robert Reinecke. It says, "Hey, Holy BatCast, Joker screens, the movie Joker, screens at the Venice Film Festival on August 31st, which is just around the corner. Given that, what are your expectations for the movie given the buzz surrounding it? Given that the Venice Film Festival and Toronto Film Festival are often, but not always, used as Oscar campaign launches, what are your thoughts on awards odds for the film, assuming it's good? I think a Best Actor nomination is possible. The Best Actress field has a wide array of roles that fit a traditional nomination, already among the likes of Awkwafina for The Farewell, Jessie Buckley for Wild Rose, Julianne Moore for Gloria Bell, Lupita Nyong'o for Us, with long shots like Florence Pugh from Midsommar, and with Little Women and Judy coming up. I don't think that the side is going to be open to many non-traditional nominations, but Best Actor seems pretty wide open. Given Joaquin Phoenix's pedigree, the potential for it to be a showy, meaty role, and the lack of any male performances so far this year that fit traditional Oscar profile, I'd suggest that a Best Actor nomination isn't too far-fetched. What are your thoughts? Robert, good to hear from you, and thorough as always.
Yeah, I was going to say, Robert knows a lot more about the Oscars than I do.
It's August, and he's already got the short list going. What do you think, Brendan? You chimed in first. What do you think of the awards possibility for Joker?
I mean, look, if you believe the buzz that's out there, I mean, it's possible. Joaquin Phoenix is a really good actor who's, got chops when it comes to Oscars. So, I don't know, like, just with everything that we've seen and heard about this movie and just the overall vibe of it and the fact that it is doing these, film festivals and everything, I don't know, this movie's going to be very different. And regardless of how faithful or, comic accurate or whatever it could potentially be, even though I don't think it will be, that's not going to matter when it comes to just if it's a good film or not. And if it's a good film, yeah, why not? Like, love to see you get some award nominations. Like, bring it on.
All right. Jamie, what do you think?
As far as my expectations for the film itself, so many people have already made up their minds that they hate this movie that it's really kind of bothersome, but I guess it shouldn't be unexpected at this point. I'm very curious to see how the general audience receives this film. Very curious. At the very least, I suspect that we're going to get an amazing performance out of Phoenix, but I mean, that's kind of run of the mill with him. He doesn't turn in bad quality stuff from what I've seen of him anyway. As far as
he earned his first Oscar nomination for Space Camp.
Did he really?
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
But he's in it.
I've never seen that. So.
Oh, it's great.
Anyway, awards predictions, I can't say. I mean, Robert's way more up to snuff and educated on that sort of thing than I am, because honestly, I don't pay that much attention to it. It does not generally appeal to me. So, yeah, I'm just, that movie comes out on my son's birthday this year, so can't wait for it to happen.
I will say that it seems like Warner Brothers is extremely confident in the film. I don't think they would be screening it at the Venice Film Festival over a month early if they didn't feel good about it.
But Andy, don't you know the script leaked and it's terrible, and he's an awful person in this film, and nobody can understand why anybody would watch a film about an awful person?
Well, the Joker is an awful person, so far so good. I feel like Warner Brothers is very bullish with it, which means I think they're confident. And I agree with what you said, Robert. I feel like I would not be shocked at all if he got a Best Actor nomination, because he certainly seems to be committed to the role from what we have seen so far. So, yeah. We'll find out. Next message is from Chris Mayer. It says, "Hey guys, I wanted to send a couple possible episode suggestions. I love the show, but I am admittedly a bigger Superman fan than a Batman fan. Would you consider doing a Superman and or Lois Lane ranking? Also, have you ever seen Holy Musical Batman? It is on YouTube. I think you might enjoy it. Best, Chris." Thank you, Chris. I've never heard of Holy Musical Batman. That's interesting. So I'll check that out. But would we consider a Superman and Lois Lane ranking? Sure, why the hell not? I have no problem with that.
I wouldn't find that objectionable.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Cool. That's a low homework one. Next message is from Grant Ingram. It says, "Hey, Andy, Brendan, and possibly the Midwestern Midnighter / Jamie."
No, it's the Midwestern Early Morninger now.
Yeah. So I recently began reading Grant Morrison's original run on Batman and Son. I have found it to be interesting. For the most part, it's exceptionally good. However, there are some pages where it seems to go to a computer graphically illustrated book where there's a flow of text rather than panels. Some of the images are quite haunting, as the CG is not particularly good at that point. My question is, have you read the book? Follow-up, what was Morrison doing? I guess I'm just confused by the choices made in those segments. Anyway, thanks for all your hard work, and good luck in China, Andy. Sincerely, Grant Ingram. P.S. I recently read Brian Azzarello's Joker, per your recommendation some time back. It is now my favorite graphic novel. Thanks so much. Grant, thank you for the message. And, we should do Brian Azzarello's Joker in time for the Joker movie. It just seems like it would be a good time.
Actually, yeah, that's a good idea.
Fun fact,
so
I've never read that.
Oh, wow.
Milks has been trying to get me to read that for like 5 years, and I still haven't read it.
Well, now is the time. We'll force you.
It's a motivation.
Batman and Son I didn't read, so I can't really speak to what Grant Morrison was doing, other than that Grant Morrison is a crazy person.
What was Grant Morrison doing? I'll tell you what Grant Morrison was doing. Drugs. All of them. At the same time. I haven't even read it, but I know the answer to that question. What was he doing? Drugs.
Okay. So sorry, we're no help. We're no help for Batman and Son. I'm so sorry. But thank you for the reminder on Azzarello's Joker. We'll take that. Next message is from Daniel. It says, Andy and whoever, Sly Stallone was the bomb in Daylight, yo. You damn right he was, Daniel. You damn right. I recommended Daylight a couple episodes ago, and someone in the Real Fans group was like, oh, I haven't watched it in a while. I'm going to watch Daylight. And I'm like, I'm sorry if you don't like it. Like, just because I like it doesn't mean you'll necessarily like it. But
I think that was
do
Julian.
like it. Anyway. It might have been Julian, yeah. It says, I'm an episode behind, so if this was already pointed out, forgive me. Similar to Arrow that uses Bruce Springsteen songs as episode titles, Swamp Thing had 6 episodes named after his songs. Oh, after his songs. Not sure what the connection is, but I find it interesting that 2 DC shows have done this. I had no idea that. Swamp Thing episode titles were Bruce Springsteen songs? I'm not the biggest Springsteen guy, so yeah, I would have never known.
Listen, Springsteen's Anatomy Lesson is as great of a song as you'll ever hear.
Is that a song?
No, I'm just making shit up.
Oh,
I don't know Springsteen. I'm a hole in the wall.
Okay, I was like, oh, does he really have a song called Anatomy Lesson? I didn't know.
It's about a serial killer that carves people up. It's awesome.
Oh, yeah. So, interesting point. If anyone out there knows why they would make that connection, I'd be curious. Next message is from Ian Jacobs. It says, hey, hi, Andy, possibly Jamie, possibly Brendan. People are learning. I have an odd question. What's your favorite character in the DC universe that's not a hero or well-known in comic book canon? For example, I'm a big fan of Richard Schiff as Dr. Emil Hamilton in Man of Steel. Some of the other ones that come to mind are Ewan Bremner as Charlie in Wonder Woman and Ike Barinholtz as Griggs in Suicide Squad. Keep up the good work, and thanks for all the entertainment. Best, Ian. Okay, so he's talking about the DC films. Like, who's a character in DC films that is not well-known and not a hero, but you really liked? I mean, I would say Etta Candy in Wonder Woman.
You just beat me to it. Yeah, I was going to say it.
She was fantastic. My answer for this, I'm not even going to try and embarrass myself by pronouncing this woman's name, but the one that played Feora Ul in Man of Steel.
Oh, yeah.
I loved her.
She was good.
She was awesome. Well, I would say Chris Maloney's character, the general in Man of Steel. I loved him.
Too.
He was awesome. But the answer is Alexander Knox. That is the correct answer. So just so you know.
How many times should we beat Andy for saying that? 6? 6?
6 is good.
6 is good. Fortunately, I'm into it. So
even my dog has come up here to tell you what a fool you are for giving that answer.
And then I will also say the parents in Shazam. I love them.
Oh, they're so great. So great.
Yep.
The foster parents. Let's be clear. Foster parents.
Yes. The foster parents. I think they're awesome. Now I'm kind of just going movie by movie. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, Jango Fett.
Well, there you go. There's a few answers for you.
Yeah.
What?
No, I was agreeing with you.
Oh, okay. Great. This is from Condor Zolander. It says, hey, Holy BatCast family, when do you think we'll get our first look of Ewan McGregor as Black Mask in Birds of Prey? Speaking of Ewan McGregor, what are your thoughts on him returning as Obi-Wan Kenobi in a series? Thank you, Condor, for the message. First look at Ewan McGregor as Black Mask. My guess is whenever we get a trailer.
That's what I was thinking.
I mean, let's ensure that the trailer comes out next week by saying I'm sure they'll probably have that trailer ready to go before Joker's released, or right when Joker's released.
Right.
Yeah.
So now that trailer will be released tomorrow.
Well, no, let me help you out. We're not going to get a first look at Black Mask. Ever. Like, it's not going to happen. I'm telling you right now. So, exclusive.
You come back to the States in the 1st of October, right? That'll be when we get it. So, I mean, that lines up with what I said.
Anyway, and then Obi-Wan, Jamie, thoughts?
I still have yet to see anything that actually confirms that this is happening, but I fully support it and I'm all in.
Brendan, thoughts?
Not a Star Wars guy, don't care.
All right.
You're right. You know what, Andy? You're right. He is a
I told you.
Holy shit!
I love me some Ewan McGregor. I can't wait to see him as Black Mask. And yeah, Obi-Wan, hell yeah, of course. I think he's great. But I'm with Jamie. I don't think I've seen it actually confirmed, but it makes perfect sense. The fans have been asking for it for a long time, and it will definitely drive people to Disney+, so I'm all for it. One last question. Woo! This one is from, Stuart from Guernsey. Question. In the Titans Season 2 trailer, who do you think is saying, "No way, Deathstroke"? I heard on the Titans podcast they thought it was either Dick or Beast Boy. It definitely doesn't sound like Dick to me, but it could be Beast Boy. Who do you think? Anyway, hope you're doing well, Stuart. Thanks, Stuart. I assumed it was Dick, but I didn't give it that much thought.
I assumed Beast Boy or Jason.
Because I feel like, that's true. Like, I feel like Dick would have a past with Deathstroke, which is why he would say it, but doesn't really sound like him. I like your answers, Jamie. Beast Boy or Jason. That makes sense.
Yeah, I thought Jason.
All right. There you go. Jason Todd. Confirmed. Hashtag confirmed.
Geez, it's been a while since I've heard that.
I know. I forgot all about it
That's
until I
a
just
Batman
said it.
news flashback.
Ooh. All right. Good news, everyone. We wrapped it up. Woo. Done with the mailbox. Good job, everybody. Pats on the back all around. So we're closing the Wayne Manor mailbox. If you've got a question, comment for us, you can send those to Holy BatCast at rf4rm.com. We do love hearing from you guys. It's always fun to see what you throw our way. But that's where we're going to wrap up this little episode of the show. Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Jamie, thanks for getting up really early. I owe you a pumpkin spice latte as soon as they become available.
August 27th.
All right.
But who's counting?
Tell the folks at home where they can follow you.
I can be followed on Twitter at BatRaider3960.
Excellent. And Brendan, thank you for being up at normal time.
Well, it's getting a bit late, and I've got an early start tomorrow. I'm starting to feel really tired. But no, thank you for having me again.
God, what a whiny
I really can't wait to hear this episode back to see how you've edited this, because I know you're not going to keep those words in, but I don't know, you can't edit them out completely because some of the show wouldn't make sense.
I mean, you got to edit what he just said because the way he emphasized can't kind of sounded like saying that other word. So, I mean, now you got to edit for accent too. It's crazy.
Anyway, Brendan, so you can go to bed. Tell the people where they can follow you.
You can follow me on Twitter at Loey007, or you can follow my show, The Nightlight, at thenightlight.podbean.com, at The Nightlight Pod on Twitter.
Terrific. I already told you where to follow me, but again, if you want to do me a favor, check out the new show, Why Not Futurama. We got a few episodes out there already, so please check that out in your free time. But that'll do it for this episode of Holy BatCast. Thank you for downloading the show. Please do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, and visit us all over the internet. You can go to holybatcast.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast. Again, if you want to send a message or a question to the Wayne Manor mailbox, that email address is holybatcast@rf4rm.com. But that'll do it for this time. On behalf of Jamie and Brendan, I've been Andy. This has been Holy BatCast. We'll see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Holy BatCast is brought to you by real fans for real movies. Remember, the thoughts and opinions shared by the participants are theirs and theirs alone, and do not represent the companies or organizations they happen to work for.
Hello, Damien. Titus?
Pennyworth tells me you're romantically involved with a criminal now?
Ex-criminal. And it's only a date.
There are no ex-criminals, Father. Only ones who aren't breaking the law at the moment.
She's not like that anymore. Damien,
Look, I understand. This never-ending mission of ours is a lonely endeavor. If this trollop provides some carnal release, so be it.
Trollop? Your slang skills need work.
But I needn't bring up your past poor choices in women, including but not limited to my mother.
Damien, I'm not...
Not that I'm on great terms here, mind you. However, I must insist that you use protection. And another thing, cover your drink.
Goodbye, Damien.
And I love Dick. And I love Dick. Love Dick. And I love Dick.